Everybody sit, class is in session. I thought today we could just go over makeup brushes, go through all of my makeup brushes and what I use them for and how to use makeup brushes, because sometimes it's confusing because there are so many. I keep my brushes in this little jar, I think. I don't know, I think I got this at TJ Maxx like 8 years ago or something, but it's adorable. And that's what I keep all of my makeup brushes in. So let's just start in, I guess, like the order of applying makeup. So if you are someone who uses a primer, typically you can just apply that with your hands, but I also have seen people apply primers with like a stippling brush and then just lightly gliding it around the face. So if you are going to use a brush for that, a stippling brush is a really good one to use, or something like a flat sort of foundation brush. Speaking of foundation brushes, they're sort of the two foundation brushes that I have that I would use for foundation. I know some people use their hands, some people use a sponge. These are what I would say are foundation brushes. This one from Rare Beauty has a really nice angle to it because they built this brush to mimic a fingertip. And so you can just slide this and pat this around your face. I prefer not to go in circles with this one because I don't like what it does to the brush, but swiping like down in little swipes or just tapping. Something like this is the Real Techniques buffing brush. This is just gonna really buff the foundation into your skin. Buff, buff, buff. And really work it into your skin and whatever skin prep you have on underneath the foundation. So that's what a brush like this is for. And now concealer. A lot of people use sponges for their concealer, and that is absolutely great. You can use something like a specific concealer brush. These are just really small brushes, or even like an eyeshadow blending brush. You can use those for concealer if you're just spot concealing certain spots on the face, or if you just want to have a lot of precision and control under the eye when you're doing your concealer. It's really good for small spots. Or if you just want to get over with your concealer fast and quick, just take a foundation brush, just pat it out, just tap it out all over the face. And that'll just be a really quick way if you're not looking for precision. Next, powder. Powder. Okay. So powdering the face, I like to use a big fluffy brush. That way I can just get it into the powder and then just get it over with really quickly tapping powder everywhere. If I'm gonna use a brush, you can also use a puff. But I recommend something big and fluffy and really work the powder into the brush. So that way you're not just like dip, shake it all off, or just, and then you have like this big spot of powder, but you just lightly, evenly apply it all around the face with something like this when you work it into the powder. And then let's go in with blush. I'm gonna do blush and bronzer together. Actually, no, let's go back to under eye setting. If you are someone who uses a separate brush to set your under eye, these are 3 really good ones. You see they're very small. They're a lot smaller than the powder brush, and they kind of look like mini foundation buffing brushes. This is just a mini little brush, but it has, you see, like a really small but very fluffy. I think this is technically sold as a contour brush to get like right under the hollows of the cheeks, which you can also use this for if you are someone who contours. The same brush for like an under eye setting brush is the same size of what you would use to contour under your cheeks, because it has that small surface area and it's gonna really focus in on that particular spot that you want, whether it is under the cheekbones or under the eyes. You can see I also use this brush for blush. So we'll get into blush now. This one I use because I was using the e.l.f. putty bronzer and it has like a really small area to dip into. But it does work really well. And the smaller the brush, the more precision and control you're gonna have over a product. So if you are working with something like a cream and you want it in one particular spot, a small brush is gonna be really great for that. Or you can use big brushes. So I'm gonna loop blush and bronzer together. So these are the 2 brushes that I would use for blush and bronzer, and also maybe the stippling brush. But we're gonna deal with these 2 for now. This one has a really big head to it and it has that angle. so you can really tap the product into where you want it. And the whole head of this fills the apple of the cheek. So when you're placing the product down, you're placing it where it is, and then when you turn it sideways, it takes up the whole cheekbone. So it's a really great size for that. And then you have your fluffy blush brush and fluffy bronzer brush. This is this kind of same idea, except this one you can do a buffing motion with if you want to, or you can just tap, 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 pat, pat, pat all the way around. And this on its side is also the same size as the apple of your cheek. And then turned like on its head this way, fills the cheekbone. And then maybe let's say you put on too much, or you want like very much like a wash of a color, something very light. That's when you're gonna go in with something like a stippling brush. And that is, I guess, the rule for, well, there's no rules, but that is what I would say for anything. If you want a light application of it, a stippling brush, whether it's foundation, blush, bronzer, powder, cream, whatever it is, you're gonna wanna go in with a stippling brush because it has that duo fiber where you're really gonna get a lot of movement in the bristles of the brush, which is gonna really move the product around. And then also a stippling motion, which is a stipple brush. What that's gonna do is, because it is that duo fiber, only some of the fibers are going all the way out, but it's keeping that structure in the brush, having all of them at the base. But when you tap, 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 it's gonna give that same wash of a light color, because it's not the whole head of the brush hitting. With a buffing brush, it's every fiber of the brush hitting the skin. So you're gonna get a lot of coverage and pigment. With this, it is not everything hitting all at once. It's only some of them, so it's gonna be a lot lighter coverage and pigment. And I forgot this brush. This is an interesting brush because this one can be used for under eye setting. I use it for that because it is that really small brush. It's like a mini version of the blush brush. But this one also is a very interesting size because, like I said, it is that size, but also if you want like a really big blend on your eyeshadow, this is your girl. Do like a smaller size under eye setting brush. That's gonna cover your entire lid in 2 seconds. This brush, this big daddy right here, she is huge and she's very, look at that. There's so much movement. She is not packed. There is so much movement up here. This is marketed as a powder brush. This is the Real Techniques powder brush. I don't use this for powder because I find that it doesn't apply like as enough and as evenly as I want it to because it is so loose. What I do use this for is blending after everything is on. So once I have, especially for powders, once I have my powder setting my face, my powder blush, my powder bronzer on the cheeks, on the forehead, everywhere, to melt everything together and make sure everything is seamlessly blended, I will take this and just with nothing on it, run it over everything. And that will just mix all of those powders together and make everything look really seamless and more of a natural sink in sort of finish. And now highlight. A lot of people use fan brushes. I don't have any fan brushes. This brush I use exclusively for highlight. It just looks like a giant eyeshadow brush and it just fits right on top of the cheekbones. But this one, because it is a bit denser, see this one just, there is not dense. This one is a bit denser, so while I do use this one for highlight sometimes, for like a softer highlight, especially because the bristles are softer, this one could also be used for contouring, also be used for blush, and also be used for setting the under eye. So I really like brushes like this. And as you'll see, I've been picking up the same brushes over and over for different things because you can use a brush for more than one thing. You don't have to have your blush brush, your bronzer brush, your powder brush, your eyeshadow brush, your contour brush, your highlight brush, your nose contour brush. You can use the same brush for so many different things. And that's where I think people get confused because they're like, oh, I need my highlight brush and my blush brush and my bronzer brush and my powder. No, you don't. You really don't. You just need a couple good brushes that are gonna multitask for you. Now we're gonna go in to eye brushes. Okay. We're gonna start with fluffy blending brushes. These brushes have a domed top to them and they're very loose, okay? And they get denser as like the size gets smaller. but these are what you're gonna use in your crease and above your crease when you're just putting a wash of color over everything. This is usually for like your lighter color, just to get everything laid down and blended. And if you watch a lot of my tutorials, you'll see I do that first, and then once everything is on the eye, similar to how I use this on my face, I'll take the blending brush I started with nothing on it, and I'll just blend everything together to make sure it's really smooth. And then you can get them in different sizes, really depending on your eyelid size, and also they have different purposes. A bigger one is gonna go everywhere, and smaller ones you can really focus in on the crease and blend in there. And same with this one, it's just a smaller blending brush. This one has a taper to it, so this one really gets nicely in the crease, like horizontally and vertically. It's just really fluffy, and those are the brushes that you're gonna wanna put in your crease and as you're like blending shades. All right, now for sort of flat brushes, you'll see some of them are a bit fluffier and some of them are a bit flatter. And that is for, I guess, blend preference and formulation preference. For ones like this that are a lot fluffier, these are ones that I like to use for if I'm packing matte color on the lid, or I'm trying to get it close to lash line when I'm trying to have a lot of precision with a matte color, or blend out the lower lash line. So in smaller areas where I'm using matte shadows, I will use a smaller, flat, but still fluffy brush. And then when I'm using shimmer shadows, because those I find need a little bit more help sticking together, that's when I'll use ones like this that are very flat. So that's just gonna pick up the pigment and then lay it right back down while not really separating. So that whole like shimmer shadow is gonna stay intact from when you pick it up to when you put it down. And then those brushes get smaller, and you can use those for the same thing or for like precision detailing. So like on brow bone highlight or like inner corner highlight, nose, like wherever you want to do like precision work is where I would use this. And then angled and flat top eye brushes. We'll start with angled because they are very similar, but I use them differently. So with an angled brush, this is where you're gonna be able to get that really precision line, but you're able to drag it. You can really drag this along because the bristles are designed for that. So this is something that I would use if you are filling in your brows, or you were trying to do like a winged liner with something like a gel liner. If you're doing it with powder, then I think you can use one of these, because with a powder, if you're doing a like precision line, you're not gonna be going back and forth. You're not really gonna be dragging it. You're gonna be stamping it down. And so then I would say that a flat one is okay. But a flat one really is for when just depositing. Deposit color, and it's gonna stay there. You can wiggle it back and forth, and it's gonna blend it and move it a little bit. But this is really for depositing color in a very small, straight area. This is, you might not use this one all the time. But this one, if you fill in your brows with a powder or a cream or a gel, or you do eyeliner with like a gel eyeliner or a cream eyeliner, or you're trying to like blend out a shadow into a wing, that's what I would use this for. So the smaller the brush gets, the more precision and the more precise application you're gonna get, and the less blending is gonna happen. And then brush maintenance. Let's get into brush maintenance. I personally clean my makeup brushes with a bar of Dove soap because it is cleansing, but it is also moisturizing, so it's not gonna like suck the softness out of my brushes, especially my natural hair brushes. Those are hair like your hair, and those need to be conditioned, and I find that Dove soap has a really conditioning property to it, while also getting my brushes completely clean. And I have started using a cleaning mat. So with this, you just take the brush when it's like, you put it in the soap, and then scrub on here to suds it up and really work that color out of the brush. Because I used to just like do it on my hand, but this really gets all that color out of the brush and all that dirt, grime, germs, everything. And now really quickly, let's just cover natural versus synthetic brushes, because not everyone knows what that means. So a natural hair brush is typically gonna be white and sometimes it'll be brown. These are made of real hair, natural hair, similar to human hair, not human hair. I don't know what animal it is, but it is real animal hair. And so with those kinds of brushes, those brushes are gonna hold on to more product, whether it be powders, but most likely creams and liquids. Because think about your hair can soak up liquid and things get stuck in your hair. Things are gonna get stuck on the brush. So when you want a lighter application of anything, that's when you're gonna wanna use a natural hair brush. Whereas a synthetic brush, these are typically going to be fun colors, blacks, anything sort of like these. These are all synthetic brushes. Not everything will tell you if it's synthetic hair, but most natural hair brushes will tell you that they're natural hair brushes. Most brushes are synthetic hair brushes for a lot of reasons. But this is not like your hair. It's not going to soak up the liquids and creams and everything like the natural hair brushes will. So if you want more color deposited, not heavier application, but a not as light application, that's when you're gonna wanna use a synthetic hair brush, whether in the eyes or on the face, because it is not going to soak up the product like a natural hair brush will. You're gonna get the most out of your products with a synthetic hair brush. And now let's talk about this part of the brush, the handle. Okay, very, very quickly, where you place your hand does matter, especially I'm gonna use the example of a eyeshadow blending brush. If you're holding your hand up here, that's your range of motion. That's your range of motion. That's what you're gonna get. The color is going to sit there and you're just gonna blend it in that one spot. If you hold it in the middle of the brush, you're gonna have some more motion, but less control over it. So it's gonna have more area to work with. The color's gonna go farther. If you hold it even farther towards the bottom, she's loose. She's going wherever she wants, okay? And that you are going to be able to do all of your blending with. It's gonna be able to give you a really nice blend of everything because you have the most range of motion in the brush, which gives it the most ability to blend. And so as you work more and more, when I first lay down a color, I like to hold it at the end, really get that like wash of everything on. And then as I'm getting more precise with my blending and what I'm putting on, my hand will go farther up the brush depending on how much control I need over the brush. More control, less range of a blend. Less control, more range of a blend. Does that make sense? All right, I hope that that was helpful and you learned a lot of things about makeup brushes and now you know how to use them, take care of them, and what is for what. Oh, and I did film this makeup look, I filmed the eye look with the Colourpop Wild Nothing palette. I did 3 looks, 1 palette, and that will be up in a couple days because this is the second look. Tomorrow I'm doing the third. And then it should be up the day after, so in 2 days if you're watching this right now. Or if you're watching this in the future, because I only have 5 subscribers right now, it's already up. And once it's up, it'll be linked below. Okay, love you. Bye. Bar of Dove soap, bar of Dove soap, bar of Dove soap.